In today's episode, we are talking about alchemizing adversity. And the alchemy that we are speaking of is not the transmutation of lead into gold, where you're working with more of the elemental table to transmute one form into another form. We're looking at alchemy from that perspective of inner alchemy, which does have a ripple effect into your outer world, but that seemingly miraculous process of one thing becoming another. So, an identity that you have being transmuted into another form, a belief that you have being transmuted into another form. And sometimes this happens in what we could say would be miraculous ways. And at the same time, there could be work and effort and time and care and attention put into the alchemical process of alchemizing adversity. That felt like a tongue twister there for a moment. And so often when we are faced with adversity, it can be ground breaking, ground shaking. It can at times even put you in a standstill or halt, depending on the severity of the adversity. Because we can say this as a blanketed topic of alchemizing adversity, but also shedding light to the fact that not all adversities are the same. We might call them adversity, but there can be varying degrees of what you experience as adversity in your life and how to alchemize it. And then even from your upbringing and your background and your resiliency, what one person might find a major adversity to them in their life, you might look at that and be like, that's my baseline for living. We're going to interact with adversity in different ways, but at the same time, when we do face adversity, there can be these moments where you do stop and pause. Sometimes you might stop and pause for longer periods of time. You might stop and pause and then push through, but nonetheless, when the adversity happens, it brings you into a still point. And the alchemizing adversity is not allowing yourself to be identified with the challenges and the struggles that you're experiencing or enduring. Alchemizing is not allowing yourself to be taken down by the adversities or choosing to be brought down by the adversities. But at the same time, alchemizing adversity is not toxic positivity and pretending that nothing's happening. So not getting overwhelmed and swept into the undertow of adversity, but not completely, putting blinders on or pretending that things aren't happening. And that's something important to touch on as well. When you're looking at adversity and seeking the light in it, because that's a huge piece of the alchemization of it, seeking the light in the challenges and in the struggles and the adversities, and being able to utilize that to strengthen your character, being able to use that for benefit and for good for you and your life. So when there is adversity, in some moments, and once again, this is why I'm not saying toxic positivity, because this expression can be said a lot, and I even find myself, I say it as well. Everything happens for a reason. And that could very well be true, that yes, everything happens for a reason, but sometimes that expression can be used to not actually look and feel and experience what's happening. Once again, not to get taken into the undertow, but even just using that expression, everything happens for a reason. Yes, it can be that way, but are you being honest with how you're feeling with different situations? Are you using everything happens for a reason to disconnect you from your emotional space? Are you using everything happens for a reason to not be an active participant in your life? So these are things to be mindful of. And sometimes that can spin into toxic positivity. So our words are very powerful, and the way that we're thinking and what we're speaking. So when we're looking for the light, It's seeking to find any form of goodness in these situations and these adversities that are happening, but at the same time, not completely painting it over to ignore what's happening. Does that make sense? Where we're choosing to seek the light in the situations, but we're not ignoring everything that's going on in the situations. And that's where the alchemy happens. When you're able to go through something that could be very challenging, that could be painful, but using it, it's almost that expression, turning pain into purpose, pain into potential. So the alchemizing adversity is, okay, sure, you could have had a string of really bad relationships, for example. You've had a history of tumultuous relationships. But what if each relationship was showing you where you could love yourself more? Each relationship was showing you where there might still be areas for you to look at within yourself of, are you seeking love and validation and needing that from other people to make yourself feel good? Are you seeking your value in other people versus already knowing that you intrinsically have value? And then you've gone through this string of relationships and you could swear off love. You could say, I'm done with relationships. But what if, and relationships, by the way, is where we learn the most about ourselves, whether it's intimate love relationships, friendships, family, like relationships are where you're put in spaces with another human. And humans are complex, unpredictable in many ways. And so you're put face to face or in these environments with other humans that can act as mirrors for you as well. So that relationship is where we can learn the most about ourselves and grow the most. Because you can be, meditating up in the mountains in a cave, thinking you're doing just fine because you're not interacting with the outside world. You're just in your cave meditating, and then you go out into the world and you see people, and woo, you could be vibrating or not. You might not get activated by being out in the world with people, but relationship is where we're going to learn the most about ourselves. So being in relationships is where you're going to learn the most about yourself, and even that relationship with yourself, deepening that relationship with yourself. So as that example, you've had this string of relationships that they brought up challenges, they brought adversity to you, but you've learned so much about yourself, or where you were seeking value, where you were perhaps choosing others over yourself and sacrificing yourself for the happiness of others, and you can't make anybody else happy. That's not your job anyway. So see this example that we're talking about. So you could have gone through these challenges and struggles, but at the same time, there could have been an awareness of the light bulbs coming off, of realizing that your value can't come from outside of you or be connected to other people, because that is a poison. That is a poison. And especially putting your happiness or having other people's happiness dependent on you could be a poison. So you've come through that, you've learned that, and then now moving forward through the alchemy of those situations, the self-love, the self-respect, the care and kindness for self has increased. And so you might not necessarily attract relationships that are going to teach you those same lessons, or you might be faced with relationships that could have those patterns repeating, but your pattern recognition is on. You see it right away. So that was one example. Another example is, even though things could be going hard or challenging for you, you don't let that dictate who you are in your life. And you look for the light. This is what we keep repeating. It's looking for the light. There are people that could be in the depths of despair and the lowest of the low, And whatever happened, that switched to them where they're multimillionaires because of those challenges and because of those hardships. And they were just driven and determined to never be there again. Talk about alchemizing adversity from being at your rock bottom, lowest of the low, having nothing to your name, and then becoming a multimillionaire. That's pretty impressive. That's not everybody's path, but there's different ways. It could be those finding those moments of being in despair or coming out of the dark night of the soul, but still being optimistic, still being hopeful, still having a twinkle in your eyes, still believing that there are brighter days ahead of you. Once again, not toxic positivity. You know, the toxic positivity is just completely negating that you're feeling bad, completely ignoring the fact that things are not going the way that you would like them because you don't want to keep feeding into it. That, okay, yes, you don't want to keep feeding into it, but you have to be real. If you're not feeling good, if you're feeling miserable, you have to acknowledge that. You have to allow those emotions, once again, not to get consumed by them, though. This is the part of the alchemizing. You don't get consumed by it, but you're real with yourself and you admit that you feel miserable. And you might cry, you might scream, you might, journal, whatever that is for you, but you let it, you acknowledge it, you experience it, you emote it, and then you let it go. Because the toxic positivity that we were talking about is if you're feeling miserable, I'm not feeling miserable. What? Completely ignoring it and repressing it. That's not going to be alchemizing anything. That's going to be creating tension and stress within the body that can at times create dis-ease. The dis-ease can create disease in the body. So part of the alchemy is to really acknowledge where you are, to witness it, to be the participant through it, but to not get taken over by it. And having faith in a higher power, God, source, divine, whatever words you want to use, having faith in a higher power doesn't make adversity go away, but it sure makes the adversities feel like you're not alone when you're going through it, and knowing that you're not alone when you're going through it, and having someone, creator, divine, to call upon when you're going through the darkness. And you will still go through the darkness. Just because you have that higher power, it does not mean you're not going to go through the darkness, but you're not alone going through it. And even if you were to look back at your life, think of some of those struggles that you've had or those challenges that you had. And maybe in the moment, you didn't know how you were going to get through it. Like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. It just felt like it was getting darker and bleaker. And somehow, some way, you made it through. We could say God, source, divine, perseverance, dedication, hope, a wish, and a prayer. We could say many different things, but to reflect and look at that. And you might even, when you start to pan back and look at your life and these different experiences of where you were and where you are now and who you were and who you are now, you could see the alchemical process, or you could be more aware of that alchemical process. So when we're saying alchemizing adversity, it's like when a diamond is under that intense pressure, when coal is under that intense pressure. Diamonds need that intense heat and pressure to become a diamond. It's almost like that's what you are when you're going through the adversity. The challenges and the struggles and the hardships could be happening to help shape you to where you're meant to be. We could say things happen for a reason. Sometimes these adversities that you experience happen to shape you into who you're meant to be, to put you into the places that you're meant to be, to help assist you in becoming who you're meant to be, to help to assist you in becoming who you're here to be on the planet as an extension of God, Source Divine. Have you ever heard that expression of like sharing your testimony? Your life and your adversities and what you've come out of is your testimony to hope of what's possible, of inspiration to not give up. And where we are right now on the planet and everything that's going on in the world, we need, as a collective, we need more hope. We need more inspiration. There's a lot of adversity. And at the same time, when you're able to alchemize it, yeah, you're going through it, but you're not getting taken out by it. Yeah, you're going through it, but you're not a victim to it. But yeah, you're still going through it. But who are you becoming because of it? What is shaping and taking form in your life because of it? Sometimes these adversities feel like your back's against a wall, like you're being punished in different ways that doesn't always make sense. But in those moments, to even ask yourself, how can I be more present with this? How can I be more present in my life? How can I be more present with this situation? We don't want to ignore or repress. So asking, how can I be more present with this situation? What is this adversity showing me about myself? What is this adversity showing me about my life? So to ask those questions, asking yourself, how can you be more present with this? How can you be more present with this situation? What is this adversity here to show you about yourself? What is this adversity here to show you about your life? What is this adversity here to show you? What can you learn from this adversity? How can you grow from this adversity? How can you alchemize this adversity into something beautiful and beneficial for you moving forward?